Welcome back to another episode of The Smart Money Show. My name is Numan Akhtar, and as usual, I'm joined by Ali Suleiman. How are things?
I'm good, bro. I am feeling refreshed. It's been a busy week of filming. We've done a lot. We've just come off. I won't spoil anything, but then next few episodes down the line, we've got a really cool in-person episode, which I'm really excited for. But I'm super excited for today's episode because it's been in the diary for a long, long time. But how are things with you?
Yeah, no, I mean, I guess it's the same. I'm shooting off to holiday day after tomorrow.
Yeah.
Sorry, my timetable's all over the place, but and yeah, look forward to that. But of course, this week of filming, so many different people, so many different insights as well. And of course, the personality we have today
Yeah.
it isn't one you come across easily, is it?
No, not at all. And I think that's a great segue into actually introducing our guest on for today. So today we are very, very privileged to be joined by Vitoria Okuyama. So she is an ex-professional tennis player and former investment banker at Citi in New York. Born and raised in the Brazilian countryside, Vitoria's first chapter was tennis, where she ranked number 118 in the world under 18, competed at the US Open Juniors, and adapted to many cultural environments by competing in 21 different countries by the age of 17. Her achievements on the court earned her up a full scholarship to study in the United States of America, opening the door to her next chapter within financial services. After college, Vitoria proved and pivoted into investment banking, spending 3 years at Citi on Wall Street. Now, she is taking some time away from the industry to follow her curiosities and decide where to focus her ambition next. In the meantime, she is building up her very impressive personal brand on LinkedIn, working in sales at Decoupling, and serving as a fellow at FIBE. Her journey is a story of discipline, sacrifice, and most importantly, reinvention. So today's conversation will explore what it takes to succeed at the highest levels of both sports and elite financial services, and how to chart a new path forward when you choose to step away for whatever reason. So without further ado, very excited to welcome Vitoria onto the show. Vitoria, how are you?
Thank you. Thanks for the intro. I'm good. Um, just moved in with my wife in our new home, so it's been a lot of just my personal life, but everything's going well.
Mhm. Amazing, amazing, and it's just like, you know, we've interviewed like a broad range of people, but then someone who's gone to the extent of competing in a sport on an international level is just one thing, but then someone who's also then doubled down and then gone into one of the most intense careers in their life and now pursuing so many other different avenues is just amazing, and it's a genuine honor.
Yeah, for sure. And the one, you know what? Normally I give you the first question, but I think I'm going to steal it this time around. So, Victoria, we normally start off with a very general question, just about kind of your upbringing, and it's a good start to our first section, which is early life and how you started off in tennis. So, can you tell us a bit about your upbringing in the Brazilian countryside and how it shaped you in your younger years?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly had a great upbringing. My family was very close. My mom's side of the family, they had a soccer team. They're all athletes, so I kind of get my athletic side from my mom's side of the family. And since young, since I'm a baby, I would go to the field when my family would play every week. So I always played soccer since I'm very young. And then through my early years, I played competitive soccer with boys because there was no soccer team in Arapongas. Um, but by the time I was 9, 10, it was getting a little bit more aggressive because the boys were growing up, and then I was always like getting hurt. And around that time, my best friend, she invited me to go play tennis, and that's how I started, and never stopped.
Wow, amazing. I've heard how, you know, in Brazil football is insane. Like, of course, it's very popular in the UK as well. But that's really interesting that like since early on, you've you've pursued sports and like not just as a hobby, but then competitively as well, which is really really impressive. So now, oh, you mentioned that your friend introduced you to tennis, but then when did you start, I guess, taking it more seriously, and then you realize, you know what, I'm actually really really good at this sport.
Yeah, it was when I was 10, it's when I started, and from the beginning, I liked it, and I saw the potential that had a lot of the people who played in the years previous to us, they were going to the US, so I always knew that tennis would be an opportunity to take me to other places. And I started playing tournaments in Arapongas. I started doing well. Then I started playing on the state. I started doing well. Started playing in Brazil. And yeah, the progression was always started small. And as I did better, I started playing like in bigger arenas.
For sure, and I can imagine that might have, especially when you really started to make it. As I said at the top of the episode, you achieved so much in that first sort of chapter of your career and of your life. So what did you kind of learn the most from that section of your life? What's the story maybe from your junior career that really captures the highs, but also maybe the lows of life on the tennis circuit?
Yeah, I think tennis involved a lot of sacrifice. I traveled by myself alone around Brazil since I'm 12. I moved away from home to live by myself to Curitiba, which is the capital of my state, when I was 15. I used to practice 6 hours a day and travel 5 to 7 months a year. So since I'm 15, like I don't see my family that often. And I mean, yeah, it was just a lot of hard work and giving up the regular life. Because we also, like, while we were in vacations at school, we had like free season. So I never really lived a normal life, as how always been very intense. But obviously, I had the opportunity to travel the world, meet people from everywhere, get a full scholarship in the US. And I also think that tennis teach you great values like the athletic discipline and also just how to lose and come back up. I think that was very helpful for when I had to try to get into investment banking. Obviously, I was rejected a lot before I got in, but the the acceptance to failure and knowing that it's just part of the process I developed through tennis really helped me push through it.
That's amazing. I think this short section of the episode just does really give like a nice preface of the conversation that has to come, because and especially it will be serve as like a great inspiration for our viewers and for myself and Ali as well, because now the next second I may be kind of I may find myself being getting a bit lazy or thinking about being lazy. I'm going to think about your story, Victoria. So thank you for that. But now we are a finance podcast, and you've done half my job for me as well. But let's talk about your transition from tennis to finance. Now, could you talk more about maybe why? Did you think about finance maybe before, or maybe through your childhood or like teenage years, or what really sparked you to start looking into finance and then consequently IB?
Yeah. No, I had no idea what finance was until like college. Um, I just knew I didn't want to play tennis anymore, and I knew the kind of life I wanted to have. Like, many constraints were real through my tennis career. Nothing ever missed at home. Obviously, my parents were middle class, but tennis is an expensive sport. So I always had to hustle to get money. I did an online fundraising to play the tour before Roland Garros, like the French Open, and I couldn't go to the Australian Open, even though I got in because I didn't have money. So I always had in the back of my mind that I wanted to make money. And to make money with pro tennis, you usually need to be top 100 in the world. And I knew that this was a very hard path, especially because I didn't want to play tennis anymore. So then I was like, okay, I think that my best shot now is to go to school and study, and I'll figure something out. But I had no idea what that would look like. And then I got to college, and a lot of the seniors on my tennis team, they were studying finance and told me about the dynamic, but also competitive environment of finance where you could make a lot of money. So I was like, okay, that sounds great. I'll study finance because I didn't have a clear passion. I didn't know what I wanted to study. So I was just following what I believed would give me a better life.
Hmm. Yeah, and it must have been tough to kind of. There must have been moments, sorry, of uncertainty as well when you were like, I don't really know what is next. And later on in the episode, we'll discuss how you kind of coped with that and how you pushed through that, because we all go through moments of uncertainty, some more than others, and it is a testament to our character and how we develop that compared to how we actually push through it. But you mentioned obviously college and stuff like that, so I want to backtrack a little bit and ask you to explain maybe how did tennis then open that door for your full scholarship to the US?
Yeah, I mean, I was 118 in the world at the time, so a lot of colleges started to reach out to me on Facebook to come play tennis for their school. And since I knew I didn't want to play tennis anymore and I wanted to study, I tried to get the best academic school, and that's why I went to William and Mary, which is where I did my college. It's a small school in Virginia.
That's amazing. And again, like just taking that leap is very, 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 very impressive. But then I guess so. Could you just talk more about your college experience then? So what was that like? I mean, and then of course from college applying to maybe internships because we've taken this. Me and Ali, I think we've taken this in subconsciously. But you are our first guest from like the states and like the US, the Americas. So how's that like on that side of the pond?
Yeah, I mean, my college experience was great. The tennis team is sort of like its own sorority. Um, we were eight. There were people from all around the world. There's a girl from UK, another from Spain, Mexico, US. So we kind of developed our own family. Um, and obviously, the beginning when I first got to school was really hard because I didn't really speak English too well. So there was a hustle. My first semester GPA suffered a little bit, but but through time, obviously, like there were no Brazilians there, so I was surrounded with people who spoke English. So I was quite quick to learn. And after I learned, I absolutely picked up with everything and got up to speed. But in terms of tennis and school, we would have 20 weekly hours of tennis and trips, usually practice for 2 hours a day, then gym for another hour in the afternoon, and we would go to classes in the morning and then at night study. And in the weekends we play games.
Wow, it just sounds intense, but I imagine you knew this would be the case. I mean, you had been put under pressure earlier on in your tennis career, so this must maybe have not come as a surprise to you, and maybe not as so much of a culture shock. But were there any moments where you felt maybe? I mean, I'm coming back to that uncertainty saying, but maybe not uncertain. Were there any moments where you felt like maybe you had made potentially the wrong decision, or maybe where you felt like you had to maybe start from square one again?
Yeah, honestly, like I was pretty confident with my choice because it was really hard to continue playing tennis. So I knew that that wasn't the path for me, so I never looked back at it. But it was definitely very hard to deal with the fact of not knowing what was next. I kind of knew what I wanted out of life, but I had no idea how to get there. So my freshman and sophomore year, especially, I didn't know what this next thing would be. It led me to be in a very like hard space, and I actually got depressed. Well, it also coincided with being burned out from tennis and having to push through something I didn't want, combined with the fact the uncertainty of not knowing what was next. That was a very tough period for me, like in terms of mental health, my freshman and sophomore year, just because I didn't want to play tennis, and I also was in the limbo of not knowing what was next. So it was hard. I didn't regret my choice of going to school. I thought it was the right decision. It was just hard to deal with uncertainty and continue playing tennis.
Wow, amazing. We appreciate the transparency because you know, I mean, if you were just putting the effort in early on, and then I hear about it as well when people do like spent so much time towards a sport and then like slowly backtracking off of it isn't easy, is it? Uh, as I'm sure you know. But then, you, I guess taking a step back now, looking at this switch you had from tennis to now more towards finance, was that then more sudden, or or do you think it was just like a gradual build up of you just slowly wanted to look for something new?
Yeah, I think it was gradually, and as I gathered information through school, it was around my junior year. I actually had a look, okay, I need to get like a good internship because all my peers were getting. This was already spring of 2020, so I was a little late in the game. And I was like, okay, what do I do for a job? And I had no idea what I wanted to do. And the only thing I knew is that I wanted to make money quick. And the best thing I knew at the time for that was investment bank. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna do investment banking. And that was how I decided into investment banking.
Mm. But I mean, it is not. I mean, IB isn't the easiest thing in the world, as I'm sure you know, Victoria. So when you settled on that, was there maybe a little shock to the system about, wow, this is quite technical, or did it come to you quite naturally? I mean, I'm just curious to hear what the mindset was like when you decided on investment banking and when you were looking for internships.
No, I just looked into how it was to get in, and I thought I could learn it. I mean, I think that we can learn anything. So it
Yeah,
was
yeah.
mostly a job, okay, I'm gonna do it, and then I put my head into it, and that was it.
So I'm going to ask one more question on this section. Then I think it will kind of really encompass what we've just talked about for the past 10 minutes or so. So now this was like a big career switch in a sense, like from tennis to IB, or let's just say finance. Now, is there any advice you'd give to someone else, or who's maybe also considering a career switch? Because I know people who are like maybe becoming becoming a doctor, but they're looking at finance, or maybe sports to finance. So what's your advice on that?
I think that there are two things. One is talk to a lot of people, like do your networking calls, like develop relationships, see what other people are doing, see what's out there. I think that I didn't really look too much into what was out there when I was in college. So if I would go back, I would have like definitely talked to more people, ask what they're doing, and seeing what other options there are. Because, for example, if you go investment banking only because of the money, in what you make in 3 years will be what other people make in 5 years. So it's not like um, there are other considerations to be taken. So I would say be sure to explore, go to events, and talk to people. And the other one is try things out. Like, for example, you think you like finance, do a model, see how you feel. Did you like that? You think you want to do maybe be a data scientist, take a data science class. Did you like it? How did you feel? But pay attention to what genuinely brings you joy, because what I have learned from both tennis and investment banking is that I was significantly better at the things I enjoyed than the things I did enjoy. In tennis, I really liked playing doubles, but didn't like playing singles, and I was very good at doubles, and I was more okay in singles. And for investment banking, like I love doing shortcuts. I became the fastest analyst in the keyboard within months, but I didn't like doing pizza. I was average at that. So it's kind of like the thing that you are good at, you will always have an edge.
I think that's brilliant advice, and that's a little golden nugget for our listeners and viewers as well to kind of stick with what really brings you that enjoyment, because then work starts to feel a bit less than work. And I think that's a perfect segue into our next section, which is Wall Street and investment banking, but a bit more specifics. So you mentioned internships in the last section, and obviously you've done an internship at Santander, but also BTG Pactual at the same time. So what were they like in comparison to your expectations of the field? How did they sort of spur you on to continue considering investment banking as a career and as a kind of your future? And then how did that all kind of culminate in Citi and New York as the place to start your investment banking career?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, it was junior year, so spring of 2020 when I was like, okay, I need to find a job because everyone was getting a job. And then I decided to do investment banking. But recruiting the US had already gone because it usually happens during the fall of the previous year. So I was super late in the US. I was like, okay, what do I do? I decided to look to Brazil because recruiting process there is less structured. So I thought that maybe I could have a chance. So what I did was I started to reach out through LinkedIn, cold message to head of investment banking in Brazil. And one of the people who replied was the head of IB from Santander. He told me to connect with the person from HR who was running the summer process. And then I connected with her, got the interview, and was able to get an internship at Santander in export finance. I knew it wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't investment banking, but it was a it was a good name to have on my resume, and I knew that would open doors in the future. So I went there and did this first internship in export finance, but I always knew that that wasn't the end goal. The end goal was always investment banking. So then I go back to the US And during that time was the pandemic. So all the athletes, they were granted another year of eligibility by NCAA. So what I did was to take a master's to take another year of scholarship to do a master's. So that way I could recruit as a younger person as if I was in my junior year again. So when I go back as a senior, I could recruit as a junior because I was still going to my master. So I had another summer. And then I did the process I in the regular time, and I had super days with JP Morgan and Bank of America, and I failed both of those super days. And it was very tough because I knew literally the questions I had missed, and I knew I was really close. So I wasn't ready to kind of give up investment banking. I even got another job in another area, but it wasn't what I wanted, and I knew that if I didn't get into investment banking now through my undergrad, the only other time I would get is after an MBA, so I wasn't ready to give up. So I was like, okay, US didn't work out in the bulge brackets. Let me go back to Brazil and see if I can get a job there. So that's when I went to back to recruiting to Brazil, started networking all over again, and same thing, code messaging people and applying to everything that I had. And then I was able to get an internship in investment banking at BTG Pactual, which is the best investment bank in Brazil. So that was really cool and a great door opener to the world of investment banking. Uh, and yeah, I mean, the internship went well. I kind of understood what I was getting into, but again, I didn't really care. I was willing to do anything to get to this point where I am right now. I just really wanted to use that as a leverage to be in the next stage of my life. So I knew that that was the path. I didn't really mind what I had to do to get to the other side, basically. And yeah, I did the internship there. I could have stayed in Brazil, but I had already signed to come back to my master's. But I would have to recruit again because I didn't have anything here in the West. But I was like, okay, I really wanted to try out life in New York. And again, I thought that, oh, this is probably my only chance of like living in New York, if not through an MBA later. So I was like, let me get back to US and try to recruit again. If it doesn't work out, Brazil will always be there. So I went back to my master's, started recruiting all over again from zero. And one of my mentors, he used to be a tennis player, um, and he connected me with an associate from Citi who did his MBA with him. And that was my first foot on the door at Citi. From there, I did another 6 to 7 coffee chats with people from the team, and then did the regular interview process, which was an initial round of interview and then a super day with 4 other interviews. And I finally got the offer for full time there at Citi.
Wow, amazing! What a story! And just for our viewers, the majority of our viewers who are in the UK, super days do refer to assessment centers, so that's what we normally have. But like, first of all, it's nice to see the difference between how recruitment is in the UK and the US. So, for in the UK, networking doesn't hold that much of value in comparison to the US, especially for IB. IB, I've heard that like per bank you need what 6, 7 uh, coffee chats. That's like more or less become the unwritten rule. So that's really interesting to see. But then the fact that you've considered different options and just pushed through to get to like where you want to be, utilize your network. It is amazing. But now I guess chronologically now we're at the point of time you started Citi now. Now could you talk to us about that? What were your expectations? What desk were you on? And then just how did like reality compare to what you expected beforehand?
Yeah, I mean, I got there. I was working on the Latin America M&A team, and I mean, I got there young, and I was super ambitious, and I obviously just wanted to do as well as I could, even though like I knew that I was just using that for to get to where I am now. But I obviously still wanted to do well, and yeah, that's how I started. I was giving like my very best, and investment bank it's kind of like what you expect. And through that, I I was working around like 4 from 10 a.m. until like starting October. I started in July, and then starting October, our routine started being like 10 a.m. to 4 a.m. every day, besides Saturday. Saturday was a protected day. and that slowly started to drain me and affect my mental health until I got to the point where I was having panic attacks, and that I knew I was like, okay, I'm not well, and I knew something was wrong. But it's interesting because while you were going through it, you don't really know what's happening because the mental limits are often not known before, at least for me, like with sports, was always obvious when I couldn't push through. Like tennis, I'm injured. If I play through it, I'm gonna get worse. I need to stop. With investment banking, I didn't understand what my limit was, so I just kept pushing until got to a point where I was like, okay, I think I need some time.
Yeah, and I guess it must be difficult because of course you've worked so hard toward this IB role, but then when it just slowly starts, scaling, like just attacking you and slowly, just depleting you in a way, it is very very difficult, right?
Yeah, and to be honest, Victoria, again, as Naman said, we do appreciate the transparency because this is a much needed eye opening episode for our students. Because, as I'm sure you know, um, the industry can sometimes be over glamorized and over romanticized in a sense, and I'm not going to say that we that it's a rubbish industry to get into, because there is enjoyment in it which we're going to get into. There's obviously the monetary reward and everything else in between, the connections and networks that you can build up. But what you just said there brought it back down to reality, I think, for a few of our listeners and viewers, and I think it's important to highlight that. And I'm gonna the next two questions we have is they kind of go into conjunction with what you said. So I'm going to kind of ask, and it might be a bit of a loaded question, but what was the toughest day you might have had in your role at Citi? And then the next question will kind of follow up on your answer.
Yeah, I think it was after I came back from vacation in February. There was another 2 to 3 months of like 4 a.m.s every day besides Saturday. And then I was on a project. I was already feeling like those signs that I mentioned, like I was very emotionally unstable. I wasn't feeling good. I was having panic attacks. And then I went to the office back to work, and I made a mistake it was kind of silly. It wasn't anything like huge, but that kind of grew into me along with all the other responsibilities I had. And I had a panic attack in the office, and it was definitely not fun to deal with. But yeah, then I just took my stuff. I went back home, and that's when I knew I really needed to slow down a little bit more.
Yeah. No, 100%. And as I said, like the next question is kind of going to be the flip of that. So when you first got into Citi, and when you passed that super day, and everything kind of had seemed to have fallen in the right place, like piece of a puzzle almost. There must have been a moment of pride, like you finally made it. So there. Can you also walk us through on the flip side, maybe your proudest moment at Citi at the same time? Because I think that just showcases just how black and white the industry can really be, how wide the range on the spectrum it can be.
Yeah, I think there are two moments. One is when I was about to start. So City does, well, at least in our year, we had like a 45-day training where City brought all the first year analysts from all around the world to New York. And it was like super fun because we were just studying, hanging out, and like really just enjoying New York. And everyone just got there. And then there were a lot of people from Brazil that came who became really good friends of mine until today. And we were just walking around, and then we just looked into the office. And I mean, it's a huge office, it's 39 floors. So we were like, wow, this is so amazing. I'm so grateful to be where I wanted to be in New York, and to just have this opportunity. So I really felt the pride, like I had tears on my eyes. I was like, wow, that's truly, truly amazing. And I'm so grateful to be here. Um, so that was one moment. And the other one was actually when I just finished. It was kind of like, I felt like a whole circle. I went back to the same place of the first day and just looked into the building. I was like, whoa, I did not expect everything that happened, but I'm so glad it did. And yeah, I just felt proud of having finished that and like being where I wanted to be in college, like having gone through the journey to be where I am right now.
Yeah, I mean, amazing. And like it's funny how that was very like a full circle moment. Then I think there isn't a better example of a full circle moment out there. Your first point, because I think that's initially that side of things do attract people to the world of investment banking. They're like they can be working in a really nice cool office. They and it'll be so nice. It'll be smooth, and especially I've spoken to people who've come back from their training in New York, and they're literally just over the moon about just getting into it. But of course, as you said, reality is much harsher than people expect, right? But a question I wanted to ask is then, I guess now you're through these years, then what did you really learn about yourself then through these 3 years, and did did in what way did you develop?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think that this was one of the experience that taught me the most about myself and really made me shed um, my old persona, I guess. Because once everything started to happen, like this was in 2023, that was burning out. I knew I wanted to leave, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. And what was tough was that money had always been my driver to investment banking, so I knew what I was optimizing for. But once I realized that it didn't make sense for me to chase money anymore, I was like, okay, what am I optimizing for? What do I actually want out of life? And that really triggered the biggest identity crisis I ever had, because it was so hard to reply to answer questions like, oh, what do I like? What do I want to do with my life? Because all my life I have always optimized for clear things and clear goals. And now I had the opportunity to actually choose what I wanted to be and become who I truly am. And that's a process that I'm still really undergoing, but I feel that I have been getting much closer to living a life that feels like me. I think really, investment banking really forced me to understand my core values and what I value in life. And I'm still figuring out what's truly my drive. It's not like a one day process they wake up and the next day and you know like everything about you and who you are. It was like a deep personal journey that it's been going on since 2023 and I'm still not done.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think hindsight is a beautiful thing as well. I mean, being able to look back and realize where you were and how much you progressed. Sometimes when you're in such a crazy and high pressure and adrenaline intense environment, you can't even recognize the progress that you've made. And like you said in your answer a couple of questions ago, when you said, the full circle moment when you came back to where you first started, and then you realize kind of the gravitas of what you've actually achieved. And I think from an outside perspective, me and Naman can realize that as well. I think we're coming on to the last couple of final questions on this section. But I did want to ask you. I mean, you said you were within a group of interns, and obviously the associates and everyone else that you created a connection with. What kind of relationships did you build during your time within those 3 years, and how important were they within your career?
Yeah, I think that you built every kind of relationship there. Was I had colleagues who were just people who I worked with. Then I had mentors, people who I could talk about career, like about living and about what was happening. And the other bucket was just friends. I truly developed great relationships there that I took with me from outside the bank. So I'm really grateful for that. And something else is that it's really hard to go through banking. So having a friend inside the office like truly makes a difference.
Yeah, it's especially with those 4 a.m. nights you were talking about, like 100%. But now I think to we're working towards closing off this section then. So now looking back, do you think going into investment banking was the right step out of university?
I mean, that's a tough question. I mean, I don't regret doing it. Obviously, it opened a lot of doors. It's like a stamp on your resume. It gives you money. Like when you say you did investment banking at a boot bracket, people know what you went through. So it's like it's another badge of how you can work. The interviews are not that simple. So, I think there's a lot of things that come with going into investment banking, and obviously on the desk, you also learn a lot because you are working so many hours a day, so you obviously learn. Um, but the downside is that it is a really hard life. It was the toughest thing I have done. My first investment bank was one of the worst years of my life. And yeah, I mean, it's really, really hard. So I think that if you do go into it, it just need to be clear on why you are going into it for, because it's definitely not easy. And especially like if you don't like finance, if you don't have like a genuine interest towards it, I think that would be very, very tough. I mean, you will obviously survive, but that will be scars.
100%. And just the sheer fact that this is coming from someone who, like as you mentioned during your college years, was going had their own intense schedule, and of course um, with tennis and football slash soccer early on in your life as well. Like even through all that experience, the fact that investment banking is still like the toughest, as you said, is really really eye opening. And thank you for that. But
Yeah, and I think Victoria, I think we're going to move on to the penultimate section, which is kind of a culmination of what we've spoken about and a culmination of your reflections on your journey, which is kind of reflecting on kind of when you burnt out, how did you realize you burnt out, and then also understanding how important balance is within life. And I think it's something that as young people we need to recognize that as early as we can. So you mentioned that I mean in your LinkedIn posts, which are amazing by the way, it's what first kind of taught me about your story and made me want to reach out. I There was a common message that came across a couple of posts, which was you didn't burn out just once, but you burnt out twice, once in tennis and once in banking. So how did you recognize those signs of burnout, and what did you do when you had to handle it, almost, especially that first time, because that must have come as a surprise to you. I mean, you mentioned that in tennis, like you can get an injury, you know something's wrong, whereas in banking, you didn't really know what was wrong. So, what was the difference between both those burnouts, and how did you handle them differently, maybe?
Yeah, I think that's the thing. I didn't realize what was happening when it was happening. And that's the tough thing about burning out. I think that's really hard to see it from the inside, but in the outside, it's pretty obvious. Like the signs are always there. And the difference from tennis and banking, I think that in tennis, it came from having to continue pushing through despite not wanting to. And I did that for a long time. I played for 6 other years after I wanted to stop. And what this led and what happened then is that like I just shut down all my feelings and then I become numb because that's what I need to do to survive to continue doing that. And then after that I just get depressed. So from tennis when I look back, like my freshman sophomore, I was really just depressed. But I didn't know. I wasn't doing therapy, and back then I was still very closed off with my emotions because I didn't like to share what I was going through with my parents because they're all the way in Brazil. I never wanted to worry them, so I always dealt with things um, alone until after banking. So yeah, so pushing through that led to depression the first time, and then the second time was also something similar. I knew I wasn't okay. I was having panic attacks. I couldn't sleep. I was more aggressive with my words. I was crying all the time. And I'm a super happy and stable person usually, so I knew I didn't recognize myself anymore. And at that time, I started doing therapy, and that's when I started to unpack things and understand what had happened to me. But while I was going through it and deep down, I didn't know what was happening. So everything that I'm telling today is looking back in retrospect. When that was happening, I didn't know. And that's also one of the reasons why I'm sharing what I'm sharing, because I wish someone had told me what was happening, that what was happening to me was not normal. And the thing with this is that like the more you push through, the worse it gets, and then it gets to a point where you just get numb and then you get depressed. And yeah, and what I realize is that it takes a long time to come out of it. So I think it's easier to repair, like you're having the signs you're unwell. Take some time off, like go recover. because once you cross the point, it's like it's a recovery. It's like think of it as a physical injury. If you're just feeling the pain, if you go rest, you'll probably go in a couple of days. But if you keep continue pushing through it, it will rip, and then you're gonna have to fully stop to recover. And I think that with the mental health, something similar. If you keep pushing through the injury, you will get to a point where you have to actually stop to recover. And I think, and this recovery is not easy. Like for me, it took 2 years, and yeah, and I'm just getting back after that. So it's easier to repair than to rebuild.
Yeah, and again, we just really, really appreciate the transparency. But I think it is like a genuine message that needs to be said, because even on this podcast, me and Ali, and sometimes with our guests, we joke about the how like people in investment banking and other careers in finance, they work long hours, but we just kind of gloss over it. But then the actuality, like the reality is that this isn't easy. And if you're gonna have to correct me if I'm wrong, but then it seemed like if you compare it to, so like whilst you do going through the tennis, the investment banking, from an outside perspective, people would be like, oh, she's in the perfect role, she's great at tennis, that's amazing. But then how did you really handle the pressure of like stepping away from something that everyone thinks is like the dream?
Yeah, I mean, I think I made peace with it right in my first year. Like, I mean, for me, it wasn't being worth it. I was hating my life. This was the most miserable I had ever been um, for years. So, what was the point of it? And then you start to realize that much of it, just going into it, is just what society think it's right and not what other people were doing. But it wasn't the right fit for me. So, for me, it didn't make sense to continue. I think that um, would be just ego and wanting to prove something. But I feel I have a certain confidence myself that I had proved enough to myself where I'm okay. I don't need that. I'm fine, and I know I can reinvent myself. So
Hmm. Yeah, I think you need to develop a sense of humility. Not to everyone thinks humility is for everyone else, but sometimes you have to find humility within yourself and be intentional with discovering that sometimes you do have to take a step back. You do need a break. And Victoria, we really do appreciate covering these sections as we've said multiple times. But now we want to move on to what you're doing now and what is set out in the near future. I mean, you've bounced back tremendously, and so we kind of just want to find out what kind of curiosities are you following right now. What are you planning to maybe do in the next? I mean, at the top, I mentioned a couple of roles that you're doing right now, but what is kind of what are you looking to get out of life right now?
yeah, honestly, like when I left, I just really wanted to see what would trigger my curiosity and where I wanted to go. I purposely didn't want to take any full times because I wanted to use this time to truly explore. Um, and I'm doing part-time sales job at the coupling, which has been great. I always wanted to learn how to sell. I think that's really important. So I'm doing that. And then I always loved going to real life events here in New York, and I went to a lot while I was doing my own search. And the main person for that here in New York is Indra Yang. He throws the best tech events, and I reached out to him on LinkedIn saying that I wanted to shadow him, and I was able to get an opportunity there at FIBE as a fellow. So I'm super excited about that, just helping out with events here in New York and also being the room with the most ambitious people in the world who are building different things. And I truly believe that this will accelerate my career and open my mind to different possibilities. So for this next step, what I want is figured out what I want to build and how I'm going to do that. But yeah, I'm thinking of starting something of my own and seeing where it goes. But I'm not setting stone on anything. And again, I'm just exploring and seeing what I like. And in terms of what I'm maximizing, I'm trying to get good sleep, exercise, eating well, spending time with my friends, my wife, and yeah, I'm just taking life a little bit slower than than I was in banking.
Again, just amazing, because like bouncing back from you know what you described as your years in Citi, and I guess um, previously your difficult years in tennis as well, and the fact that you bounced back and you bounced back strong, looking to you not only just coast now that you find yourself in a relaxing point, but just to progress and maybe build something, but with some well-deserved balance as well, which is really impressive. But I think it is now finally time to move on to the final three questions of the episode. Vitoria, thank you so much for all the help you've given us. But I think these last three questions we asked to all of our guests, and it gives like a nice overview of the episode. So I'm going to kick things off, Ali, if that's all right then. So now, looking back on your career journey, what are you the most proud of?
I think it's all the sacrifice I had to make to be in the position I am in. As I mentioned, I started traveling by myself when I was 12. I moved away from home when I was 15. I did fundraising at 15 to get money to travel. I came to the US a scholarship without wanting to play tennis. I pushed through investment banking. And yeah, I think it's just the whole journey and its sacrifice I had to make to be in the position I am at today, where I can finally say, okay, what do I actually want to do? And I can do that because of all the hard work I put through all my years.
Mm. Yeah, I think that is 100% the correct answer from the story that me and Nawan have heard as well. And I think just to highlight that is you left Brazil and you came on scholarship on the US. You didn't have on your mind, right, I want to get into investment banking. That wasn't your goal. I imagine your goal is to be living the life that you're living right now, a sense of almost balance and freedom. And I think it's amazing to be able to sit down and say you've achieved that. And that works well into my next question, which is, you have mentioned a lot of different ages throughout this episode. I mean, you said 12, you're traveling by yourself. 15, you were fundraising, and then you 17, you've done 21 countries, etc., etc. Right? So, if you could give your younger self one piece of advice, but maybe also a piece of reassurance, maybe, what would it be and why?
Yeah, um, that's a tough one, but I would say to be a little strategic about your life, because I think that choosing to do hard things early on in life, they do pay off, especially if you don't come from a privileged background where you do have to build things for yourself. I would say definitely keep in mind that the kind of life you want to have in the future, and reverse engineer that. Think about where you want to get and what you can do today that will get you there in 3, 5, or 10 years. So I think that my best advice would be to just be strategic about your choice. Think about what kind of life you want to have and build towards that. You don't build the life you want like in a couple months, you build that through years. So yeah, just reverse engineer the life you want to have.
One 100%. I don't think I can say anything to match that. So I'm going to finish up with our final question of the episode, which is, what is the biggest takeaway you hope that people take from your story?
I think that everyone can get to places as long as you keep trying side doors and continue pushing. Um, and in terms of the career itself, it's be open to everything, explore, be curious, don't close your mind off just because it's what other people are doing. Be sure to explore and pay attention to what you want and what you like.
Hmm. Well, I think it's been an amazing episode, and I think that's how we would like the episode to finish off. Victoria, it has been an absolute pleasure to break down your career and your personal journey, and we thank you so much for joining us. We hope you enjoyed reflecting maybe in this conversation as much as me and Naman did. Right, Naman?
And this is, I think, hands on one of the most insightful episodes we've ever done, and I'm saying that on camera as well. So like, just so you know, I'm not trying to lie and say this, but like genuinely, it was very, very like eye opening and inspirational at the same time.
Yeah, definitely going to watch this back and just kind of really get even more out of the insights you provided, Vitoria. So thank you so much. And to our listeners and viewers, we hope you enjoyed that episode as much as we did. So of course, if you are watching us on YouTube and for some reason you haven't already subscribed, then please be sure to subscribe. I'm sure Vitoria has given you an amazing reason to do so for even more episodes like this from the Smart Money Show. And of course, the same goes to you who are listening to us on our audio platforms. You can drop us a rating and drop us a comment on either platform. If there's someone we should be speaking to that we haven't spoken to yet, or a topic that we should cover on the show that we just seemed to have not covered yet, then please do reach out and we'll try our best to do so. And of course, please do show us some love and engagement on our social media platforms, where we'll be announcing some events we'll be hosting very, very soon, and ways for you guys to maybe come and work for the Smart Money Show. But as usual, thank you so much for watching and listening, and we'll see you next week for yet another episode of the Smart Money Show. Take care and stay tuned until then. Thank you.